We came over from Germany. It was during the period of the Nazis, where German Jews like my parents and me were being killed by the thousands, and so it was so grateful for us to know that there was a man in the world who was willing to save people like us, to rescue us from what was happening all around us.
The things that he did for people, including my parents, is just unreal. Because if it wasn't for what he had done, I would not be around today either.
It's an astounding story because who would have thought that someone from North Dakota would have been giving out visas and making an effort to bring over the Jews from Germany.
When I think about how fortunate we were to escape and survive in the United States, and I know so many millions were slaughtered by the Nazis, I know that I'm a lucky person.
Caught in the whirlwind of anti-Jewish persecution from Hitler's Nazi Germany, many frightened families tried in vain to escape persecution, what history would come to know as the Holocaust, the German government-sanctioned murder of 6 million Jews, as well as millions of other people whom the Nazis also considered undesirable. But some desperate families would be saved from that horror by one man half a world away. A humble North Dakota businessman who rescued 125 refugees, securing their safe exit from Nazi Germany and deliverance to America. On a day in 1887, in the small German town of Oberbrechen, Samuel Stern and Mina Strauss celebrated the birth of their new son, Herman. But it is unlikely they could have possibly imagined the incredible impact their son would have on the lives of their family and friends and history itself.
Dad was one of 6 children, and he was the only one in his immediate family who came over from Germany.
He had few job prospects in the little community in which he lived, so he became an apprentice to a tailor in one of the larger cities. He was learning the tailoring trade when one of his mother's relatives, M.G. Strauss, came to visit. Strauss owned clothing stores in North Dakota, was looking to expand, and was looking for some employees he could trust. He offered Herman a job in one of his stores. Herman jumped at the chance and was on his way to America within a matter of weeks.
At 16 years old, Herman Stern courageously sailed alone from Hamburg, Germany to the United States, landing in New York City. From there, he boarded a train and traveled to Castleton, North Dakota, where he would begin his new life in America. Once settled in North Dakota, Herman went right to work at Strauss's menswear store in Valley City. In 1912, Adeline Roth became Mrs. Herman Stern. The following year, the young married couple welcomed a son, Richard, into the world, and a second boy, Edward, 1 year later. Adeline and Herman would remain happily married for 69 years. By the 1930s, Herman and his family were prospering and living happily in America. But in his German homeland, the seeds of hate were being sown, from which unimaginable horrors would soon arise.
Germany's military defeat during World War I, accompanied by the staggering economic losses it experienced as a result of the Great Depression and the Versailles Treaty, created a tidal wave of anger and resentment amongst the German population. Along with these situations, the German people had attempted a new experiment in politically, a democracy. But this instability led the German people to follow more radical political views. And it set the stage for a demagogue, a person who sought political power through arousing fear and prejudice and hatred.
An ambitious political newcomer saw opportunity in the racial and religious intolerance that had been simmering in Austria and Germany. Adolf Hitler would quickly rise from obscurity to political influence and power by fanning the fire of bigotry. He used anti-Semitism, the discrimination and hostility toward Jews, as a tool to direct his political strategy, claiming that disloyal, unpatriotic, and greedy Jews were behind Germany's defeat and surrender in the First World War.
Hitler appealed to the lowest common denominator in Germany at the time he was coming to power. He told people what they wanted to hear without being specific about how he was going to do it. But he was going to save Germany from the trouble it was in.
In a political movement fueled by hateful anti-Jewish rhetoric, along with the promise of restoring the country's national pride and economic and military strength, Hitler was catapulted to power and in 1933 became Chancellor of Germany. Hitler moved quickly to abolish democratic rule and used his absolute authority to begin a systematic persecution of Germany's Jews.
His wild statements and his Mein Kampf were made fun of at the time. Nobody could imagine that he was that serious about some of the things he said. But it scared my father, and he was more worried than the people were in Germany.
In the years preceding World War II, most Jews still couldn't believe they needed to leave Germany. This was their home. They could not imagine their country would really turn on them, although it was clear the anti-Semitic treatment was increasing under Hitler's leadership.
The Nuremberg Laws in 1935, which basically disenfranchised Jews and separated them legally from the mainstream of German society. They were no longer allowed to engage in professions, in businesses. They were expelled from the schools. They were just cut off from German society, economically and politically.
Time was of the essence if you wanted to get out. Some people thought it would blow over maybe, or some thought of that sort, but the activity became so hostile towards the German Jews that it was clear that you had to find a way to get out.
When Uncle Herman sponsored my mother and father and brother to come to the United States, they had very little time, and they could just basically take bare bones luggage with them. They had to leave their furniture, everything that they owned of any value back in Germany. They just left with basically suitcases and their clothes in their back, and they took off.
When I was a little girl in Germany, the Nazis had come and they were having parades of soldiers in the streets. They were singing a song with my name, Lore, 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 schön sind die Mädchen von 17, 18 Jahren, which means so beautiful are the girls of 16. And they were singing, and I said to my parents, they're singing my name. Can I go out and say hello? And I want to say hello because they're singing about me. And my parents would not let me go out. They just wouldn't let me go out. Already German Jewish children couldn't go to a public school. We had to go to a Jewish school. And I came home from it, walked to my house, and children called me a dirty Jew and threw things at me.
On November 9th and 10th, 1938, the wrath of the Nazi Party was leveled against the Jewish population. Jewish synagogues were burned to the ground. Jewish personal property was confiscated and destroyed, and 30,000 Jews were arrested. The event is known as Kristallnacht, the Night of the Broken Glass. Jewish existence in Germany was soon to be eliminated.
When the Germans were taking down and burning all the synagogues and rioting in the streets against Jews, and I somehow have had a memory of my mother taking me by the hand and walking out on the street just in anticipation of more damage being done to the building.
Uncle Herman sponsored my parents to come to the United States, and if they wouldn't have come, they would have ended up being in concentration camps and probably gassed to death or be dead, because it was getting very, very rough when they left, and they got out just in time.
Eventually, Germany's Nazi government used their legal authority to forcibly relocate all Jews, no matter their age, to ghettos or concentration work camps. Cruel as this was, in the coming years under Hitler's rule, it would get worse for Jews.
My father was very active in our coming to America. He felt that there was a great danger in Hitler's actions, and his early sayings frightened my father to the point where he said, "No, we have to get out, we have to leave."
The Nazis would implement what they called the final solution, condemning all Jews to gas-chambered death camps, where close to 6 million Jewish people would eventually be mass murdered.
So many of the friends we had and relatives, distant relatives, that we said goodbye to, and they all said, "Well, maybe someday we'll see you in America." And my father said, "I hope so," and we never saw any of them again. They all died.
Many Western nations, including the United States, were experiencing their own social, economic, and political problems when Hitler came to power in 1933. Anti-Semitism and poverty were rampant, especially in the United States, and thus many countries chose to ignore Hitler's political and economic and social policies until 1938 and 39.
Hitler made his first aggressive move towards his plan for expansion in 1938 and annexed Austria and part of Czechoslovakia. Encouraged by his success, Hitler ordered German troops to invade and conquer Poland the following year. Germany's invasion of Poland was the official start to World War II. In 1941, after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, Germany would declare war on the United States. Over the next 4 years, the U.S. would join France, Britain, and nearly 50 other nations in an alliance that would become known as the Allies. Prior to the start of World War II, however, there were people working tirelessly to help German Jews to escape the madness that was developing in most of Europe.
German Jews who wished to flee Germany faced two imposing obstacles. First, they had to be granted permission by the German government to leave. And this was actually possible until World War II began in 1939. But the second obstacle for many Jews was a greater challenge, finding a nation that was willing to take them in. Anti-Semitism was widespread in the Western world, especially in the United States.
So the issue for Jewish refugees was not just getting out, it was getting in someplace.
Many Jewish refugee families would never escape the determined pursuit of the Nazis, but some would be lucky enough to hear about one man living far across the ocean who just might be able to save them. The daughter of Herman's brother Gustav was the first to reach out to her uncle Herman for help in immigrating to the United States. Remembering the ease with which he entered the country, Herman did not think it would be difficult to get Clara to North Dakota, where she already had family. He soon learned different.
As a result of the Great Depression, many Americans were afraid of losing their jobs to immigrants. Along with widespread anti-Semitism in the United States, there was very little sympathy exhibited for German Jewish refugees.
The State Department was, like much of the country, viciously anti-Semitic. They didn't want to help. They certainly didn't want Jewish refugees coming into our country. They required paperwork that you can't imagine. Additionally, you had to financially sponsor. So whoever was going to be the sponsoring family in our country had to basically guarantee they could provide for the person coming.
Herman, however, educated himself to all of the complicated rules and regulations in place. In doing so, he found that a student who came to America for the purpose of study would be exempt from the quota.
The first people who came over were his nephews and nieces, high school kids. When things got worse in Germany, then their parents started, Dad tried his best to get them to come over, and some of them did.
Herman Stern's wife, Adeline, was really a partner with him in this endeavor. Her particular role was helping people adjust to life in the United States, and she mentored people as well, especially the women. They were really partners. It was a team effort that they engaged in to bring people and mentor them and help them become American.
Apparently Mr. Stern and my mother were friends when they were both young in Germany. And when they were children, they knew each other. And so my mother said one day, well, if we have to go to America, maybe this Mr. Herman Stern will help us. So she wrote to him.
Herman Stern was in contact with my grandparents in the late 30s, and also stayed in contact with my parents in Paris beginning in 39 and 1940. He knew that we had to get to the United States.
Herman Stern in Valley City, North Dakota, decided that he had to do something to respond to the urgent pleas he was getting in the mail, these letters pleading for help from family members.
Desperately hard to get a visa. You had to guarantee that people would not become a ward of the state. And Dad, while he could guarantee that for one or two people, he couldn't guarantee it for the 125 who he finally ended up bringing over. He ended up working through Senator Nye, our North Dakota senator, who was considered anti-Semitic, and he definitely was anti-involvement in World War II. But he helped Dad. He was from Cooperstown, and he had known Dad, and he helped Dad work through the State Department to get visas for the relatives.
Senator Nye was the most isolationist member of the United States Senate. He didn't want to help Europe, but had nothing to do with refugees. He made a national name for himself by being so radical in those positions. Well, Senator Nye knew Herman Stern, bought clothing from him, knew of his reputation as a business leader, knew the kind of integrity that he had, and knew that Herman was someone you really couldn't say no to very easily.
Senator Nye worked things with the State Department so that they only kept track of one at a time, or two at a time. So they didn't charge Dad with being responsible for 125. That was the chief contribution of Senator Nye.
Even with Senator Nye's support, the immigration process was lengthy. There was a bureaucratic ocean of paperwork to navigate, and funds needed to be raised to pay for fees and travel. There were places of residences and jobs to line up before any immigrant would be approved. This all took time, but Herman was a patient man. But for the refugees in Europe, whose lives were in jeopardy, patience was in short supply.
When things turned from bad to worse and Nazis had actually occupied France, it was very important, my parents told me, not to speak German, or else the Germans would know that we were refugees. We knew that we had to get out of France.
Herman Stern was leading the fight alone for the German Jews who contacted him to escape Nazi Germany. A virtual one-man army whose only weapon was writing, which he did relentlessly.
My parents talked about a city where all the German Jews had to go, where the American consulate was sitting, and they were examining you, all of us, to see if you could go to America, if America would have you. And if you were sick, if you had an illness, then they would examine you and you say, I'm sorry, we cannot take you in America. So I thought, what could happen? They wouldn't take me, they'd leave me in Germany. And I was can imagine how a child would feel at that age. So we went into this examining room, and sure enough, I was examined, and they discovered that I had a heart problem. And the doctor said, I'm sorry, that we'll have to, take x-rays and examine the child further, because this way we cannot, as an American physician, cannot accept her. So they took me away and took x-rays, and they found that there was nothing wrong with my heart. But then we finally came. We left from Hamburg. That was the port city at that time, on the SS Manhattan.
My parents made several attempts to escape Paris to get to unoccupied France. Unfortunately, twice were aborted, and finally we made one trip that did work. As we were walking through a forest, our guide heard some dogs, which were obviously German guard dogs, and he disappeared. My father had to carry me back some kilometers back to the road where we had entered the woods from, and I don't know how we made it back to Paris, but we had to go back to Paris. The third time, by that time, my parents had figured out a way to do it, and that is my brother and I had a guide, my parents had a guide, and my grandparents had a guide. We all went different directions with the idea that we would meet at a hotel across the border. My brother at that time he was 11, I was 5. We were put into a bicycle, a little cart, and the guide lived in a town called Bléré. And he threw a tarpaulin over us as we neared Bléré and bicycled us through the demarcation line, which was guarded by the Germans, but he lived there, so it didn't mean anything to them. While my brother and I made it through, my parents got stuck. My brother and I had to stay by ourselves with a guide at this little hotel. Ultimately, the next day, we all met again.
By the time Hitler's armies were defeated and the war ended, Herman Stern had seen to the rescue of 125 Jewish refugees from German-occupied Europe. When the liberating Allied Army discovered the Nazi death camps, the fate those 125 people would surely have met without the intervention of the North Dakota businessman became harrowingly clear.
Once the war ended, Herman's son Ed came home and took over management of the store in Fargo. Herman concentrated on the other stores in the state. Ultimately, there were 9 stores in 5 of the state's communities. That made up Strauss Clothing.
Herman was old school. He had deeply held values. He actually had written them down in a book, a little book that he would give to high school kids as kind of things to live by. But the difference between one that might talk lofty values like honesty, integrity, hard work, Herman lived by those principles.
Herman Stern was a passionate individual, and he promoted North Dakota. As a result of his passion, he helped found the GNDA, later known as the Greater North Dakota Chamber. As well, he helped found the Winter Show in Valley City. He helped found United Way in North Dakota and the Boy Scouts in North Dakota. As a result of his efforts, Governor Dalrymple awarded him the Rough Rider Award in 2014.
Being a humble man, Herman Stern did not talk much about his heroic wartime rescue mission. After his death in 1980, however, others began to talk about it, particularly the rescued refugees and their families.
I would say Herman Stern was a role model. He was a savior of hundreds of German Jewish refugees.
Part of the things that Uncle Herman always stressed about speak up for what you feel is right. And I appreciate it more now.
I have a photograph of my classroom, and there was 36 or 37 children, and 5 of us are alive today.
If it wouldn't be for Herman Stern, I wouldn't be here today. And that's the truth.
Herman stands in my own thinking really in a special category of someone that under kind of impossible circumstances never quit thinking he couldn't make a difference, and a critical difference.
He obviously was extremely talented in his work, extremely concerned about others, extremely willing to go to great lengths to help them. And I think there's a wonderful lesson in that.
The ordinary person that Herman Stern believed himself to be produced great results. And I think we all have to take that lesson, and we all have to apply it in our lives, because as individuals, we can make huge differences. And his life really proved it.
My father and my mother and I, too, felt great allegiance to America and a great debt, not only to Uncle Herman, but to a nation that received refugees like us, because we would have been in camps, deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau, or, there were so many others, and we would have died. We would have been burned to death or gassed to death. So in that case, we were very grateful to Uncle Herman, and because he saved us, and not only us, but many, many, many other people. And what a remarkable thing to do for a human being, to be able to accomplish that, to be that selfless and take that responsibility.
If it wasn't for him, we would not have been here.
Herman Stern teaches all of us enduring lessons that we want our kids and grandkids and all future generations to understand. Determination, character, courage, and putting others before our own selfish interests.
So Herman Stern not only brought 125 people, but he brought their descendants with their accomplishments and their contributions to the United States.
I can only say thank you a million times to my Uncle Herman.
One of the most important things that I've learned over the years from Herman Stern's experiences in the United States is that even one person can make the difference in other people's lives.
The remarkable legacy of the humble North Dakota businessman lives on through family stories shared generation after generation of the individuals he saved. Herman Stern, a man half a world away, would become an army of one and rescue 125 German Jews from the Holocaust, securing their safe deliverance to America, as well as an honored place forever in their families' hearts.